All right, everybody, we're going to go ahead and get started. I want to honor everybody who joined us on time. I'm sure there'll be stragglers that come in. We also are recording for people who couldn't make it. But I just want to welcome everybody in. I'm glad that you're here to kick off our Entrepreneurs Toolkit series. I do want to thank our sponsors who made sure that this content is free to anyone who's passionate about the topic of owning your own career. So thank you to Marquette University Graduate School and their Institute for Women's Leadership for their sponsorship. So tonight we're going to zero in on one of the most powerful but underrated career skills. So we're talking about generating ideas and building a business case. Organizations are usually packed with good ideas, at least in my experience going in, but usually only a handful of those ever move forward. But why, right? And it's not because they weren't creative. It's about convincing others of your vision and showing them the value. So if you want to drive change, whether you're a leader or an individual contributor, these are the skills that you're going to need tonight. So let's work on learning how to go from I have an idea to this idea can make an impact, and here's why. So you're going to hear me say the word entrepreneur a lot tonight. So what do we actually mean by that? An entrepreneur is a change maker working inside an organization. You're probably someone who spots opportunities, solves problems, and champions change right where you are. You don't wait for instructions, you try new things, you build connections, and you roll up your sleeves to navigate the messiness of innovation, even when you don't have official authority. So I'm curious, just a quick chat check. So who here has ever led a new project, fixed a broken process, or helped solve a sticky problem at work, even though it wasn't part of your job description? Let's go to the chat. Yes, or give me a response. Yes, thumbs up. Yep, Dennis. Yeah, right? Like it happens, right? We need to look for those opportunities. And I love to say this phrase, like, look, the grass is not greener on the other side. It's just a different color, and there's always dog poop in the yard. Like there is opportunity upon opportunity for us to get involved. So why are we here really? I have a vision for this community, and I think it's pretty straightforward. We want to unleash change makers at every level in every organization. I believe workplaces desperately need people who can turn fresh ideas into results, who are brave enough to experiment, and who know how to build support for new ways of doing things. It was in my career that I just sort of discovered that I had this entrepreneurial mindset about my work and that I wasn't going to let anyone else own my career except for me. So that's our mission tonight, to give you some practical tools, a supportive network, and a confidence boost so that you can start making your ideas real. And here's my challenge to you. As we begin, I want you to think of one thing that you wish you could change at work. What skill, process, or culture shift would you want to see happen? And I want you to hold that in your mind as we're going to learn together tonight. Okay, so I'd love to just do a little bit of level setting here to help you make sense of the entrepreneurial journey. I have a 4P framework for entrepreneurship. It's very simple. I'd love for you to think of these as guideposts. It's not a checklist or a ladder that you climb. These are more of mindsets that you want to revisit as you grow and you start to practice the mindset and skill set of an entrepreneur. All right, first step, first P, profile. I want to assure you that in all my research of the past 15 years of talking about this topic and interviewing individuals and coaching individuals, there's no single mold or perfect personality for being an entrepreneur. They don't all look or act the same. Some are loud, some are quiet, some love spreadsheets, others design thinking, some are planners, and some are improvisers. So what matters is that you bring your unique mix of experiences, perspectives, and strengths to the table. Organizations are stronger when entrepreneurs come from everywhere, not just one background or one team. So if you've ever thought, like, I'm not the typical innovator, think again, because we need all types in this work. So pause for a moment to think. What part of your background or personality makes you a great spotter of opportunities? Jot it down, share it in the chat. Give it some thought. Stop for a second. That self-reflection is a really powerful tool. Okay, next up, pressure. As entrepreneurs, many of us are going to carry pressure to fit a mold, to meet family or societal expectations, or chase someone else's definition of success. But real innovation in the career happens when we start to let go of that outside noise and connect with our own sense of purpose and possibility. Only then can we take the risks needed to learn and grow. So it's about being willing to fail and view setbacks as part of the process. So pause for a second. What's one outside expectation or pressure that has made you second guess your ideas at work? If you're comfortable, type it in the chat or note it down for a later reflection. Okay, third P, permission. Once you've lifted some of that outside pressure, now it's about giving yourself permission. That permission has to come from you. It's not going to be handed over by your manager or by a company policy. You have to give yourself the green light to dream bigger, to act, to experiment, even when the path isn't clear. Entrepreneurs are those who decide, I'm allowed to make an impact. I have the right to try. So pause and consider, what's one thing you want to give yourself permission to try or pursue in your work this month. Just take this next month. How could that change the game for you or others in your team? All right, the last P is promote. Because here's the reality, if you do not advocate for your own ideas and articulate their value, they're likely going to stay invisible no matter how much impact they could have. We often hope someone else will notice our contributions or that results will speak for themselves. But in a busy organization, small or large, storytelling matters. Promoting isn't about bragging, it's about making sure that your ideas and your work on them get the support they deserve. So tonight I'm going to challenge you to practice telling someone about your idea. What's the problem? What's your proposed solution? And why does it matter? Because if you don't promote your value, who will? And there's one last acknowledgement that I want to make before we get into our experts tonight. There are really, in my research, three paths for an entrepreneur to go down. The first one is somebody who is completely committed to working for an organization or a company of some size. They love the security of it. They have managed to apply their creativity in unique ways. They see all of the opportunity that exists from within a system. The second one I found is pretty common, especially in this gig economy, where you have your, let's call it day job, and then you also have a side hustle. You've got something going on the side. So for me, an example of that, I was a senior director leading a big team, and I sort of got bored. The work that I was looking at wasn't mine, it was someone else's. I felt like I wasn't creating anymore. So I started a photography business and I ran it for 8 years on the side. And it was my way of investing in my creativity, which helped me not only in the side hustle, but in the day job too. And then third, I meet a lot of entrepreneurs who have their eyes on entrepreneurship. They want to be a business owner. They want to create. They may already even have an idea that they're sitting on and nurturing. So these three paths, again, there's no one right profile. You can be going down one of these three paths and still be an impactful entrepreneur. So we're going to talk about ideation and building a business case. Ideation and building a business case, these are not like isolated skills, right? I picked these on purpose because I see this is where a lot of individuals get stuck within the organization. They've got a ton of great ideas and no way of pushing it forward. So at a surface level, ideation seems straightforward, coming up with ideas, But when we dig deeper, ideation is much more than idea generation. It's about cultivating a mindset of curiosity and possibility. Curiosity is one of the top three traits that I see in entrepreneurs. It's about seeing challenges as opportunities, questioning assumptions, and intentionally creating space for innovation. It requires the ability to bring diverse perspectives together and connect dots that others may not see. So, this skill helps us rise above routine thinking and creates the well from which all meaningful change comes. So, not, having good ideas is not the only thing we need to do, right? The real test is how you translate these ideas into something others can embrace and support. And that's where building a business case comes in. So, we're going to look beyond the surface, right? Constructing a strong business case teaches us clarity of purpose and strategic thinking. It forces us to understand not just the what of our ideas, but the why and how. Why this idea matters to the organization, how it aligns with business goals, what resources it requires, and how it creates measurable value. This is a strategic exercise in influence building. And the deeper power of these skills lies in how they shape your role as an entrepreneur. So, in essence, developing these skills empowers you to step into your influence with intention and purpose to lead change courageously, strategically, and successfully. So let's dive in with your first expert. It's our Entrepreneur Spotlight with Erin Allen from Sargento. Erin, welcome in.
Thank you.
Let me see. I gotta find where my slides are. Here we go. Got a big picture. I know you're gonna love it. Okay, Erin, let me introduce you. I would love to. So, Erin Allen is a dynamic business technologist known for filling impactful roles within major organizations across Wisconsin. Currently serving as a director of IT strategy, digital, and architecture at Sargento Foods, Erin is recognized for her ability to bridge the gap between technology and business strategy, leading teams to deliver organizational transformation and innovative solutions. Her extensive background includes leadership and architect roles at companies like Harley-Davidson, Baird, Miller Coors, Seven Summits, where she drove efficiency, collaboration, and digital workplace advancements. Erin, welcome to the Intrapreneur Incubator.
Thank you.
Okay, so let's jump in. We got a little bit of time with you. We've talked about the importance of ideation for an entrepreneur. What role has ideation played in maximizing your impact where you've worked?
Yeah, boy, first off, I have to say, when we talked about this, uh, entrepreneur is not a term that I had really known about for very, very long. I would say it's a fairly recent thing. When you talked about those paths, way more familiar with those entrepreneurs. I grew up on a dairy farm, so I was very used to, in people being very courageous and starting new businesses, but to do it inside a company or even just to help, as you were saying, like the definition of just helping to spark new ideas within a company. And when I think about it, that definition, it's something that I have done for most of my career in lots of different ways. But specifically, if I think about kind of the time at Sargento, because I know that title is a mouthful. People are like, "What the heck does she really do?" Which is what my parents normally ask me when I tell them my title. But part of that IT strategy responsibility included starting a emerging tech practice at
Mhm.
Sargento. So when I joined 8 years ago, we had never. It was kind of in IT. We waited for the phone to ring,
Okay.
but there was even 8 years ago, there was a lot of new technology that was coming up, and people were wondering about it. And so I started this emerging tech practice that really kind of spoke to what you had already shared in trying to build up people's confidence and curiosity in learning and experimenting with new things. So we started really easy. We just started hosting tech talks. We bribed people with food. We brought them in to talk to them about different things, allow them to touch and feel, and maybe start to get creative with their own ideas. And then as those people started to surface, we started to tap them for additional experiences. We took them on immersion tours. maybe down to Chicago or out to Silicon Valley, and get them immersed to see even more real world examples of entrepreneurs really, um, at big companies. And then we led into like a Shark Tank where we had people, um, we gave them a really broad challenge and we allowed them to create an idea or share an idea as big or small as they wanted, but just to start getting people to flex that muscle and to build up that confidence. That was, really a big thing for us. And as we got to see more people build that confidence, we got to fine tune those prompts, those challenge statements for people, and really started to see, a lot more change in the organization and how people approached work and how they approached learning.
Yeah. And I'm sure, Erin, as you did that, you saw that just the general awareness of the need for change probably created more ideation within the organization. But I'm curious for you, how did you build support or momentum for your idea amongst others in the organization?
Yeah, so I think that's the other thing is you find those, I'm going to say, co-conspirators. There are people in the organization that probably are feeling frustrated like you are, or maybe are curious as well. Find those partners, and find something small to work on them with. When we started the Shark Tank, we had a couple of great ideas, and one of them actually came up right away. It was not a new idea, but it was one that all of a sudden IT could play kind of the middleman between two teams that weren't really getting along very well. Each one wanted to own the idea, and so there was a lot of, um, kind of standing their ground. With IT in the middle, we were able to bring these people together for a common experiment. And that really allowed, that allowed us to demonstrate what it means, the value that we could bring in why you might want to do these things. A small win with a very big advocate, somebody who is trusted in the organization, really did a lot of that promoting for us that you mentioned earlier. We didn't have to do necessarily on our own.
Yeah. And I know, Erin, as people are listening to you, they may want to see how they can get connected to you. So I will be dropping Erin's LinkedIn here in the chat for those who would like to follow along on Erin's journey. LinkedIn is a great place to find and connect with them. Erin, before I let you go, I'd love to hear from you. What's one action that someone can take tomorrow to move their idea forward?
Yeah, so I think that is, if you've got an idea, do you have that co-conspirator that you could tap on the shoulder, go out to lunch, grab a coffee with, and share that idea? One of the things, right, is if you hold yourself accountable when you share your idea with somebody else, and they can make, help push you to be brave and to do some things that maybe you wouldn't do, but they can maybe help you too and work on it together, be your advocate, your promoter. It doesn't have to be somebody who's high up in the organization. It could just be somebody who, you know, has a lot of collateral in the organization to, maybe get your idea, seen by a lot of folks.
I love it. I love it, Erin. What's one cool thing you're working on right now?
Ooh, um, it's got to be AI. I hate to say it,
Yeah.
but it is something that's out there. Where can we use AI? And ironically, we're having a lot of fun using AI for ideation.
Yeah, good. Okay, we're going to be talking about AI in November. So hopefully you can make it back for that. Anybody on the call, we're going to be again looking at AI as a skill, as a tool for your career as an entrepreneur to move your ideas forward, both inside and outside the organization. Okay, Erin, I love it. Thank you for joining, Erin. Everybody get connected on LinkedIn, and we'll see you at a future event.
Thank you.
Okay, up next. Okay, so up next, we've got two awesome leaders joining to guide our small group discussions and some skill building practice. So first up, Ash Dzick is a seasoned UX professional and educator who brings a deep passion for inclusive design and user-centered thinking. She has a strong track record of helping organizations innovate by improving how people experience products and services. Her insights will be valuable as we explore creative problem solving and ideation techniques. And joining her is Justin Mendez, a skilled facilitator and business leader known for driving operational excellence and strategic growth. Justin excels at translating complex challenges into clear action steps and empowering teams to build compelling business cases. So together, Ash and Justin are here to support your learning today, sharing some practical tips, helping you apply the concepts we're discussing in real world scenarios. So join me in welcoming Ash and Justin.
Hey, thanks. Excited to be here. If you could stop sharing your screen, I'll swap to mine. I think that's going to be easiest. Okay, great. I'm assuming you can see my screen.
We can.
Perfect. Yeah, thanks everyone. So my name is Ash Dzick. As Anna mentioned, I am here to talk about sourcing and generating ideas as part of this 3-part innovation series. So quickly here, before we get further, and we'll drop these links in the chat as well, but we did kind of provide our LinkedIn. Always happy to chat about current or upcoming innovation that you've got going on. So one of the things that I was really excited for with this particular event is every single person on this call, we're all capable of creativity and ideation, and we're actually going to prove that in activity in a bit. So just forewarning, we're going to actually have a hands-on activity. But I do think that no matter your age, your experience, your background, if you've been in your career for 1 year or 50 years or never in a career because you're a high school student, every single person here is capable of intrapreneurship, entrepreneurship. I sometimes like to joke at work that I don't personally have any good ideas, but what I have is a good toolkit to enable the ideas of everyone like you on this call. And so hopefully today, over the course of all of our speakers, we'll show you a few tips and kind of tricks in our toolkits. So to kind of build each one of you into this change agent. And I mentioned this earlier, but I just really, really want to harp on this. It's something that I think I really struggled with in the beginning of my career, which was the idea that I needed permission to ideate, and you don't. Sometimes it feels like we wait on the highest paid person in the organization to make decisions, to make ideation calls, but that's how you end up in the same routine, doing the same things day in and day out. So I do want each one of you to leave this 3-part series to feel enabled to be that change agent. Maybe it's a little scary to go all the way up the corporate ladder, but at least within your teams or your boss or your area around you. So before we go too far into sourcing ideas, Justin and I, you'll hear from him in a minute as well. We work for Molson Coors, so we're a Fortune 500 company. We make, most people in this area are familiar with what we make, but we make your classic dad beers. I plan on having one of those after this, actually. But we also make a lot of other products like Topo Chico, the alcoholic version, Simply Spiked, Zoa. But that journey for us to go from a true beer company and a brewery to a true beverage company really meant that we had to rethink everything. So today we're going to spend some time talking about how you source ideas when you are a 200-year-old company, a Fortune 500 company, traditionally a little bit slower to innovate and change. And then we're going to spend some time talking through how we kind of get through those first couple steps with ideation. So with that, I will turn it over to Justin to talk through the first part of idea sourcing.
Hello, everyone. Thank you, Anna, for that great introduction there. It was very awesome. Appreciate that. And what better way to for Erin, actually, from Sargento. We got the cheese of Wisconsin, and now we got the beer of Wisconsin. We just need to work on getting Johnsonville or something like that, or Usinger. We'll have the big threes. Yeah. So my name is Justin. I work with Ash on the technology innovation team, and something I kind of want to share about here are ways and kind of unique methods that we go about when it comes to ideation, and kind of put them in 2 separate lanes here. We believe in like empowering people and and also finding unique talent from various different ways, which are some of our partners that we work with. IC Stars, for some of you who are familiar with them. So they're untraditional talent. We are pretty heavily partnered with them and have contracts with them, and they do some pretty awesome things, and all about tech and different ways of thinking. Same thing with women in tech. And then also Molson Coors has, we have different types of employee groups. So we want to mix IT with finance and marketing, and just have those conversations, because with those diverse backgrounds, there's a lot of great things that happen in that space when it comes to challenges that they're facing, and then ideas that they may have or ideas that we may have, and then just collectively working together to help doing some awesome things and continue for Molson Coors to exist for another 200 years and beyond. And then the same thing for rotational program. This is our way of sourcing unique talent from various different areas. A lot of college folks here go into this role. They start their career all within IT and different breweries. And as you know, IT is a huge format. So they have the opportunity to go to supply chain. They have the opportunity to go to distribution, and a lot of the other things that are tied to IT. But also as a team, Ash, myself, and Joshua, we like to provide opportunities for folks to get connected with community. So these are some of the things that we run. One of the things called is Geek Week. So this is a week-long experience where we bring in local thought leaders when it comes to academic thought leadership, nonprofit, big tech, and everything in between, and just provide an opportunity for employees to think differently about things in their day to day. And it's just a really great program that we have, and it's been a success, and we continue to do that year over year. Innovate for Impact. This was previously called Community Collab. So we reimagined how the format of how we go through this workshops. Ash, myself, and Joshua on the team, we've created the workshop and worked with leaders to help understand what types of tools that we want to release into the rest of Molson Coors. Erin mentioned artificial intelligence and ways and safe ways of using that, how to use that. So a lot of that's intertwined within that Innovate for Impact. Texpiration is where we provide the opportunity to go to offsite locations to learn about how they innovate on site, and then do fun tours. And this is provided an opportunity for a lot of different groups outside of IT to join this. And it's just all about creating that diverse thinking and that networking, and just that think tank to come back and be innovative. All right, you go to the next slide here. All right. Okay, so Anna had the 4 Ps. So this is the 6 Cs here, the six pack. Something that when it comes to, I know it's great to be in your mind and really trying to come up with an idea, or but at least in my space, I feel like what it really comes, and what I really thrive when it comes to ideating or thinking outside the box, is going out and having conversations. So that be with customers, and your customers is not necessarily the person that is at the enjoying a Miller Lite at the pub, or as Ash called it, dad beers. I am a dad, and I enjoy dad beers. But it can be your stakeholders, so your folks that you're working on a project with, and having those conversations about some challenges and pain points that they're facing, or maybe they have an idea, and let's say that you had something in the back burner and where it can help complement that. you guys are getting really excited about something, and then together, as Erin was saying, you have that, that partner to help drive and kind of get it to the next phase, and hopefully to a situation where you can take it to a prototype or point of view. But also the next C is community. So getting out there, and a lot of big major cities tend to have like certain types of opportunities for like tech communities. So getting out there and getting involved, like what Anna's doing here, and really showcasing a lot of the entrepreneurship things, and connecting with us, like you see in a lot of the QR codes here, and starting those conversations in your community. And then also competitors. So what are the other folks doing? What are our competitors doing on how, and then why are they doing it? So, I mean, you won't necessarily probably have a one-to-one conversation, but Google's a great friend. And so a lot of the Gen AI types of things to help them understand, and press releases of things that they're doing and why are they doing it. It just helps to understand the landscape and to ensure that you stay competitive. Colleges, a lot of colleges in states have tech centers or some type of innovation center where there are students in the lab developing something or creating something. Or Ash and I took a trip, and we were working with one of our community partners, and it was this watershed place, and we apparently this is not technology related, but it's like a student there making a maze for fish. I don't know what it's. I mean, hopefully they found their way out or something like that.
I will never get over the UWM research project for fish maze. That was my big inspiration takeaway. How can I do something that disruptive and that cool?
Yeah. I would actually like to learn more about what that study was all about. But yeah, getting out there to the colleges, wealth of knowledge, wealth of professors, and also conferences that they have there. And then, conferences, there's a lot of community free events that you can go to, virtual events like this. And so just getting out to and networking and conversations. And I've been saying conversations a lot, even though this is my sixth one, but it really comes down to, at least the importance for me is getting out there and having those conversations. And understanding a lot what are the customers doing, community, competitors, colleges, and conferences, and at least this helps you become a bit more comfortable when it comes to talking about your ideas, bouncing off information off of others. Maybe they have something to help complement, or when it comes to information. And I know it can be a little bit like what Erin or Anna was saying about the 4 Ps, and something that comes to mind and a wall to break down is like, we go to work or we're in school or wherever, right? And we have what we feel is like a brilliant idea. And I think there's a lot of fear that comes with, thinking outside of the box, right? Because we're thinking about our reputations and how people are going to perceive our idea. But I think what Erin was saying is really going out there and having those conversations with a lot of folks, whether it's your colleagues or you're skipping up to leadership, and then really getting their input so you can right size it and tune your message when it comes to actually sharing out with the broader audience. So those are my 3 C's. They're not trademark at all. Hopefully you got something out of them. Otherwise, feel free to connect with me, and I'll just pass it back to Ash here.
Yeah, hey, thanks for that. I'm excited to continue the conversation. So one thing there we go. We're having a little bit of lag in my slides, so I was trying to figure this out while you were chatting, so you might have temporarily saw my teams here. One thing that I always personally struggle with is going from inspiration to ideation and action. So I might have one idea, but I don't know how to get started. Maybe I have 15 ideas and I'm sitting here staring at that blank piece of paper. So one of my favorite examples of this is actually from SpongeBob SquarePants, of all places to get ideation from. He has an essay that is due, and he's spending forever just looking at his blank piece of paper. And after hours and hours of writing, all he's come up with is the. So, we don't want you sitting here, you're staring at your blank essay for hours only to produce one fantastic word. And I think AI could be a great start for that, which I know you'll talk about in a future one. But I want to go through what is one of my favorite activities for getting past that first hurdle. So one thing you will need, if you weren't pre-warned, here's your warning now, is you will need any piece of paper, a notebook. Here's my notebook. You'll need something to write with. A thin tip will be easier, but you can use a Sharpie, you can use a crayon. We are going to get hands-on for this activity, and you'll see. So I'll give everybody just a minute to maybe find a piece of paper here, ideally bigger than a Post-it note, but if that's all you've got, we can make it work. I'll just give everybody like 30 seconds. If you do have a piece of paper and maybe a pen in front of you, if you could just give me a thumbs up, that would be helpful so I know that we can maybe start to get going here. So this activity comes from a book called Creative Confidence. I will send a link later on so you can get the whole book if you like this activity. The reason I chose this one specifically is it's actually from our internal Geek Week conference, as Justin mentioned, from March 2025. So I'm going to set a timer for 3 minutes after this, and your goal is to draw as many circular objects as you can. So the goal is not to be pretty. The goal is to have as little detail as possible and to go as fast as possible. So we're going to try and draw 30 circular objects in 3 minutes, which is a lot, I know. But again, they just need to be barely recognizable enough to stand out from one another. And don't worry if you get to that many, but usually people can get to, I'll say 10 to 15. It goes fast once you get started. But again, just to stress this one more time before I set us off here, we want quantity over quality. And go. So I'll give you 1 minute check-ins here. We're just going to spend 3 minutes on this total, and then we'll come back and share and see how many people got. So if you get stuck, start thinking about your previous ideas. Is there something you can expand on? Is there something you can add on? Again, we're going for quantity, not necessarily the most unique. All right, we're getting close to our final stretch here. Last couple of ideas. Okay, and time. So put in the chat, how many objects could you think of in 3 minutes? Again, I know 30 is a lot, but I've only seen a few people get close to 30, so no worries if you didn't quite get there. Ooh, 18. That's impressive. 15, 24. Dennis, you might have some of the highest number I've seen in a minute. Joshua, looks like you got stuck on that's me as well. Okay, so the reason I like this idea is because it talks about a concept that I think is really important with ideation, and that's the idea of fluency versus flexibility of ideas. So some of you may have filled circles really quickly, letting your imagination run freely. You went to planet, you went to basketball, you went to fishbowl, you went to donut, just all very, very unique, different ideas. But I think most people go and have variations on a theme. So for example, you thought of a baseball, so then naturally the next circle was a basketball. Or maybe you just happened to have some coins nearby, so you threw every single kind of coin you could think of on your sheet. Other times you might have paused, kind of reconsidered. Maybe you got stuck on a snowman, but for whatever reason that reminded you of a planet. And so I think you need both of those, the fluidity, the idea to generate concepts very quickly, versus flexibility, which are truly unique ideas. So that fluidity helps us to generate that wide range, to get really unique, while flexibility allows us to kind of reshape and refine those ideas as we learn more. And so that's why thinking both fast and slow, or you'll hear it in design thinking as divergent and convergent, where you're working separately and then together, matters. Because fast thinking kind of unlocks that spontaneity, it unlocks that surprise. It gets us past that initial hurdle that our first idea has to be our best idea. And slow thinking brings that depth and intention. I think innovation really thrives. Entrepreneurship really thrives when we can shift between these modes and we can think very quickly, generate a lot of concepts, and then kind of come in, look at what we have, and then refine. So, keep practicing that balance. So it's honestly become one of my go-tos here, something I still do really similarly in my own work. And we'll frequently do this in ideation workshops as well. So in design thinking, there's one called Crazy Eights, where you set a timer for 8 minutes and people have to come up with 8 ideas. Or we'll even just have Post-it notes, virtual or in person, and just tell people, come up with as many ideas as you can over the next 5 minutes. Because I found when you just sit here with ideation and you work on one idea, you get so stuck on one idea that it's really hard to see the variety of concepts. I like to call this similar, or it's kind of similar to me, like, building with a set of Lego. You can either take your time and build one really, really nice looking Lego that's perfectly functional, all right angles on the bottom of the brick, all the circles are exact, and at the end of this, you just have one really nice Lego. But if your whole team spends its time building things that are kind of half-baked and not really put together very well, you can still build a rocket ship or a castle or whatever else you're doing with Lego. Succulents, they have a lot of things these days. But you could build all those things, and you can't do that if you spend your time on this one tiny perfect idea. We need to really be able to expand and think quickly. So just a couple of other ideation things that we found really successful at Molson Coors. The first one is note and vote, and each of these have links, and we'll send this out after. And so note and vote is a good way to get consensus on ideas without groupthink. So in note and vote, and you can do this in any kind of way, but everybody is generating some sort of ideas, and then you're sharing them, and then you're voting on them without talking about them. And so instead of going around the room and having everybody share ideas, you're kind of silently putting them up on a wall, on a virtual whiteboard, whatever it might be. And then that way it doesn't end up that the person who enunciates the best, the person with the most passionate argument wins, because they all kind of have equal footing. I'll talk about lightning demos, and then Justin, if you want to take us and talk about rapid prototyping a little bit here. But I also like, and Justin mentioned this earlier with competitors, like there's no reason that you have to reinvent the wheel every single time. Look at competitors, but also look at other industries. Like look at different areas for inspiration in the technology around you. Find the things that you think work really well that you could take, especially if it's a different industry. You don't have to look within your same industry, your same company, your same vertical for ideation. Like literally the world around you is the best place to get inspired.
All right, I think that's my cue to talk about rapid prototyping. So what this gonna look like, it's great when you have an idea and you're able to like articulate it well, but it's also if it is possible to get and very impactful to get it in somebody's hands. So when it comes to a prototype, is exactly what it is. It's something that is like not quite the finished product, but it's going to help you run the test and get it in folks' hands when it comes to getting their feedback, and then also getting their opinion of it, getting some feedback as far as like, okay, well maybe it should look like this instead of that, but it doesn't necessarily always need to be something physical. So maybe it's a PowerPoint application of a UI that you made up. I mean, I tend to use PowerPoint a lot, maybe a little bit too much. I used it just recently, actually, for branding of a new project or product that we're releasing. Not beverage, but a tech tool. And one of the leaders was like, "Justin, like this is great. Like, you gotta tell me what you're seeking. What tools are you using?" It's like I literally used PowerPoint shapes. Like I can really cook with some shapes there, but it's really anything at your fingertips. You don't necessarily have to pay for things, and it could be cardboard, it can be pieces of paper or drawn circles. I guess if that's your idea to draw as many circles, but really leveraging it, and and it really complements when you have something to show people, whether it's a physical or a digital format. And then pass it to you, Ash, for the kind of close us out here.
Sorry, I'm working off of one monitor, so I keep going back and forth a little too fast. I just want to again say you don't need permission to ideate, and making inspiration frictionless. When we've brought some of this back in with our Techspiration and conferences, I think it really gives people a chance to think through ideation without having to go out of their comfort zone. I'd love to get to a point where our team members are all really ready to be those strong innovators and entrepreneurs within Molson Coors, but we're kind of on that journey, and it's very overwhelming to just throw people out into the world and ask them to come back with stuff. So by bringing these activities, like starting not from zero, bringing Geek Week, bringing Techspiration, Innovate from Impact to the people around us, it really gets them on that ideation journey. A couple of quick things here. These resources will be sent out afterwards, so I won't go through them in detail, but here's some of my favorite books for getting started with ideation. Our LinkedIns have already been shared in the chat. And then I think kind of teeing us up before we move into our next conversation here, which are there obstacles right now, either in your personal life, in a startup, in a giant corporation, whatever size company you work for? Like, what is preventing you today from acting more like an entrepreneur? And I'll kick us off while people are kind of thinking about their answer. And for me, that's been really figuring out how we go from, again, ideation to action. So how do we take all of these great ideas we have and really kind of get them prioritized, get them funded? For me, that has always been something that I've kind of personally struggled with, and raising my hand and saying, yes, I believe that this is a good idea for those reasons. So, we're all kind of on that journey together. No obstacles. Everyone's just ready to go.
I'll add to that, Ash. I was recently talking with somebody who works for, I think, a mid-sized organization, but was just talking about how it's sometimes the opposite of like having no ideas. They have too many ideas and they want to do
Sure.
all the ideas. So they're so excited about the possibility that then they want to do all the things.
Yeah, that's a hard one too. I think big roadmaps, big product backlogs, I definitely feel that. And then, yeah, scared to fail. If you don't have a culture where failure is okay, or even if it feels like the people around you are okay with the idea of failing fast, but the entire organization might not be ready for that, that can be a huge thing to overcome. So excited to continue to learn more as we figure out how to get through some of these obstacles together.
Thanks, Ash and Justin too. All right. See. Still see them? Okay, great. Stay with me. Okay. All right, we are rolling. Okay, we are rolling along. Thanks, everybody. Love it. Okay, so Coby Skonord is an executive at Ideawake, a leading innovation platform that empowers organizations to tap into collective ideas of their employees and turn them into measurable business results. So over the past decade plus, Coby has helped hundreds of companies foster cultures of innovation and continuous improvement by leveraging crowdsourcing and employee engagement. His work has driven millions of dollars in savings and new revenue opportunities for clients in diverse industries, including healthcare, manufacturing, and financial services. Coby's passionate about enabling change makers within organizations to discover, develop, and deliver breakthrough ideas that transform how people work and drive business growth. Coby, thanks for joining the incubator.
Hi, everybody. Thank you. I'm glad that I got to catch Ash's in the back end of Erin's presentation too. Awesome content so far, and happy to join in and hopefully provide some insights for folks. So I'll just share my. I think I need to share, replace current share.
I'm going to stop sharing.
All right.
There we go.
Awesome. And thank you for the intro, Anna. So what we're going to go through today, folks, just like Anna already gave background, and we have a ton to go through today. But in short, I'm involved with ideation like literally every day, and something that we found that was a gap was the execution side, to Anna's point that she gave kind of towards the end of the presentation. And so what we did was take the learnings from when we were building out Ideawake and just some of the customer problems that we identified, and built out a product originally with Aurora Healthcare, and it's all designed, or it's called the Idea Box. It's all designed around how do you take a raw idea that you have, build the business case behind it, and then get a pilot approved by leadership in order to actually eventually make it happen inside the organization. So to date, we've taken over now at this point 450 teams through that program. And what we tried to do, it's normally 4 weeks. A couple of months ago, we condensed that down with Right Height into 2 days. And now we're doing it in 20 minutes, or actually 10 for the presentation side. So it's going to be a lot of content in a short period of time. I know this is being recorded, so just reference that as we go after the session. And we do have like a mini handout too that you can use to start creating that business case. The angle of this that we're presenting it from, by the way, is intrapreneur versus entrepreneur. But if anybody has questions afterwards and wants to apply that externally, just reach out. Happy to help. So what we're going to go through, action-packed agenda. Move this down here. We're going to understand, we have our raw idea, go through the problems it solves, tie those problems to strategic goals, and then define customer personas, define the value of your idea in dollars and cents to the organization, evaluate other priorities in the organization and what your idea is being compared against, and then understanding assumptions, what could go wrong with your idea, evaluate the best ways to de-risk those assumptions, and then create a pitch that will get you to a yes. And outcomes from today, really what I hope to leave everybody with is just providing you with tools that you can take back to your everyday working life, especially the assumptions and validation-based testing framework. Understand the value of your idea in dollars and cents and start thinking that way. You'll get more ideas approved that way within the organization. And then just helping you look like a rock star to your leadership team. So going into part one here, so hey, I have an amazing idea to help my company. Awesome. So what do we do once we have that idea? Step one is just defining the problems that it solves. Most of the time, from what we found, a lot of the ideas from an entrepreneurship perspective are going to be related to time savings. But it could also be general, like error rate reduction, saving money, improving customer satisfaction. So they run the gamut. But like step one is, hey, what does this idea do in terms of high level problems that it's solving? Then from there, what you want to do is step two is tie it to company goals. So if you had like an all hands leadership meeting recently from the CEO, there's some documented goals hopefully you can tap into. There's something, even if you just ask your boss, there's going to be something that you can get an understanding around, like high level or very important strategic goals to the company. It's normally going to be like in a 3-pillar, 4-pillar, 5-pillar type of framework that you'll hear from leadership. You want to make sure that your idea in some way, shape, or form, whether it's just perception or reality, ties to one of those 5 pillars as an example. Then from there, what you want to do is understand who you're going to be selling to internally to get an approval. So we break this down by 3 different types of customers. So we have our secondary customers. Those are the folks that actually use our solution on a daily basis once it's implemented. Primary customers, which are the people that buy the solution. So this could be used internally or externally, but just for time that we have today, think about this in the frame of the person that's going to approve or fund your idea in order to move it forward. Last but not least, we have influencers who are always the ones that will come in and, well, you want their buy-in. They don't necessarily make the decision, but they influence the person that's going to approve your idea. A very simple example, if you had an idea to go paperless in the office, reducing waste by 50%, the end user is all employees within the office. The primary customer would be a VP of operations or like a chief of staff who would be the approver and funder of the idea. And then the influencer is Larry, who's the VP of finance, who's high up in the organization, been there for 20 years, and he's been printing everything off for 20 years monthly for reports, and it's 100 pages, right? So that influencer could be the one that, although your idea makes clearly logical sense to implement, would be somebody that you need to make sure that you bring along or are thinking of when you're actually pitching and creating a business case for your idea, because they can sabotage it without you even knowing. Where you want to be is basically your idea right here is in the middle. You want to make sure that you're addressing those customer pain points. Once again, I'm being pragmatic here. In terms of this, you want your primary customer. Think of the end user first always. In terms of this actually tactically happening from a business case perspective, you won't get approval from your primary customer if it doesn't help the secondary. But what you want to be thinking about is your primary customer pain point related to the organizational goal and your problems that the idea is solving and how you're presenting it to leadership as we go to this next step. Like I said, Anna, you're going to send this out in recording, right? Afterwards. Okay. So I know that this is a lot, folks, and we're just step 1 of like 4 through. So defining idea in dollars and cents, the value of it, and the cost associated with it. So at the end of the day, if you oversimplify everything, every idea is either, like, as it relates to a company, either going to relate to growing revenue or growth in general or reducing costs, right? So revenue growth could be selling products, right, to more customers. It could be improving customer retention by elevating customer experience, capturing a higher percentage of market share with a new marketing campaign, et cetera. From a cost reduction / efficiency perspective, most of it, like I said, is related to time savings. But what you want to do then is project the value that your idea can provide the organization. We have a follow-up exercise that we can send out for this, but that itself is 30 minutes. So we couldn't go through that today. But just the main thing I want to highlight is that most people have a apprehension to provide like a projection on the value their idea can provide. At the end of the day, from a starting perspective, you have to, sounds crazy, but you have to come up with starting assumptions, and essentially you'll feel like you're making the numbers up. What you like to, like what we suggest always for when we run these programs is start with a lower bound, like super conservative estimate. So as an example here, just as a statement, if we implement our idea, if it just reduces error rate by 1%, it's going to save us $50,000 a year. But we actually think it's going to reduce it by 5, meaning it saves us $250,000. So you provide your expectation, but then provide a baseline, and that makes normally makes folks more comfortable. This is like the number one thing though, in terms of getting approval for like an initial business case to do like a mini pilot, which we'll get into, is going to help you a ton in getting a higher percentage of the time that you get ideas approved. Projecting costs, we can go through this later, but it's, well, afterwards in the recording. But at the end of the day, think of it as one-time costs, right? Like upfront to get something up and running, and then things that it will take from a recurring perspective once it's up and running. Also, one of the things internally that's thought of the most is resourcing, because everybody here, if you're working internally, know that you're already over budget in terms of the time, and you're working overtime probably. So it's very difficult to allocate time resourcing to get ideas stood up, which is why we want to show our next piece here. If you want to get something approved, what you want to be thinking through is, how do I present this in a way and actually like deliver on it, where the cost, risk, and resources of implementing it in the leaders or like approvers' mind is 3 to 10x of the perceived value of it. And then from there, we go into our next piece, which is evaluating, right, our idea against alternatives. So what we want to think about is like, hey, there's other projects in flight, as always, right? The question that I asked for the previous presenters, like Rihanna's thing is, hey, like what happens when there's a roadmap that's already 2 miles long, right? So what we want to do is think about like our idea's value relative to the other things that are already in flight in the organization. And once again, elevate the value of our idea. Let's say it's a really small, quick win as an example, right? So it's the value of the idea minus the cost and the risks. If it's something that's super easy to implement, that can be seen as, hey, let's just do this. It's easy to implement versus something that's like a new product, right? These are different ways that you can think about for differentiation of your idea. It's normally a flip side of the problem that your idea solves. And then we're going to go into next. I'm keeping track of time here. Like I said, we got it down to 2 days. I want to make sure we get this, get over to the exercise for folks as well. But defining your assumptions and the risks around your idea. And if you take nothing else away, this next section, as you have the idea and try to start framing it up to get it approved, this will be super helpful. Assumptions simply represent characteristics of our idea that need to be true for it to work in the real world, but we haven't proven whether they're true or not yet. A cheat sheet for this that we actually just made today is breaking this out into 3 different levels at a high level. You have level 1, and by the way, you start at level 1, work your way up to level 3. So level 1 is, does the problem actually exist? Is the problem big enough to take action on it? And does the idea, if we delivered it, actually solve the problem that we think it's going to? If you can validate all of those, we're going to go into that in just a minute of how you can validate them. A lot of level 1, based upon your experience, often you're going to come up with these ideas. You'll be able to validate part 1 pretty quickly. Part 2 is, can we get somebody, our customers, to sign up or buy our idea? And that's normally the users. The pitch itself for the business case is for like leadership. So it's, can we get our secondary customers or the users of our idea to sign up or adopt our idea? Can we deliver a basic version of it to them? And did the basic version actually deliver the results that we thought it would? Level 3 is, can we actually deliver that full version to customers? And can we do it profitably? And did our idea actually provide the value to customers that we thought it would once it's rolled out fully? Going into tools next. And are we doing all right? Are you overwhelmed? Just okay, cool. All right. So now that we have our starting assumptions.
Time, Coby, we're doing just fine on time.
All right, perfect. So once we have these assumptions, what do we do with them? And this goes into, like I said, if you take nothing out of this presentation, this is based upon lean startup methodology. It's a little bit of a simplified version of it. That's a fancy way of saying, hey, we have an idea. What can go wrong with our idea, right? How do we use tools then to go through and validate these assumptions around our idea. And based upon what we learn, we modify the idea and go through this loop over and over again. Basically, what a lot of folks try to do is describe their idea and then pitch the full idea and get approval for the full idea, instead of trying to identify what could go wrong, de-risk it, and present that in their business case, because those are the objections that are going to come up to the person approving it. So if you show this work up front, right, even if, like, once again, the projections, you're going to have no idea when you present it, right? Whether or not those are going to hold to be true, but the more that you can do to justify that with research, the more likely you are to get your idea approved. These are the different tools, like starting tools, that you can use to validate assumptions. So like surveys, super useful for like getting out and talking to customers. What we do when we do the Idea Box program, customer interviews and observation are always the starting point, even though they're not going to give you quantitative data getting out and having conversations with folks. And I think that that's echoed through all the presentations and conversations so far today. It's getting out into the world, talking to your customers and getting feedback on the problems that they're experiencing versus your idea is invaluable, even though you can't take it and quantitatively measure it to leadership. But outside of that, you have internet, LLMs. You have the ability to tap into like internal SMEs and internal data. Trying to get some data behind the idea when you do that presentation is going to be invaluable. And most of the time, the problem that you're solving, there's data that you can tap into to show that it's a problem, and it's a big problem for the organization. These are all explained, as you'll see in a little bit here, in the handout that we have in the final slide. There's QR codes and links that you can use, and these are explained all in greater detail, breaking down like when to use them, when not to use them, and how they work. And last but not least, we have actually preparing our pitch. to decision makers and getting that business case and or our idea approved to run a pilot on it. At the end of the day, just simply put, the goal of your pitch is to demonstrate that your idea's value is 3 to 10x greater than the cost and risks associated with it. We're not going to go through all these slides. Once again, the main thing I really want to focus on is the ask right here, because it's the number one thing that we see like a mistake on from intrapreneurs. But this gives you a nice overview, and we do have a template as well as a resource that you can download that actually breaks out each one of these slides as a template. You can just copy and paste. You can customize the color scheme and logo too. Pretty cool. But going back to that previous slide, the number one mistake we see folks do is they try to pitch level 3. Let's fully implement the idea, and there's a lot of costs and resources associated with that normally, versus going to level 2 and validating level 1 before they actually pitch. To say that one more time, instead of pitching level 3, pitch level 2 and get the answers to level 1 before you actually present the business case or your idea to get it approved for a pilot. Just as an example, and this is just a nice little visual, the initial ask that you have to leadership should be like this. Instead of the full vision and launch of your idea, you want to present that, but you want to say, hey, there's a couple of critical things we need to validate. Specifically, can we get folks to sign up for it and deliver a basic version before we try to roll out the full thing? An example in the real world would be, hey, I have a new product offering, like a new idea to attract an existing customer that we want to get a higher percentage of the market share of, or just target a new market segment. Instead of saying, hey, let's build this new product that costs like $1 million and a ton of IT development time, let's do an offer in our next newsletter, teasing the idea and see if we can receive X number of signups, whether it's 30, 10, 100, just based upon your audience size. So with that, and we have until 6:50, right?
Yeah. Yep.
Look at that. Okay. Well, we're a little bit behind, but I'm going to share this link in the chat. If anybody, it's going to be better, by the way, folks, if you have your are at a computer versus your phone. But I'm just going to minimize this and grab my link here. So what is going to happen if I can find the chat? I might have to stop sharing for 1 second. There we go. So if everybody clicks on that link, it's going to ask you to create a copy. And if anybody doesn't have access, I've got the chat up right here. Just let me know. Everybody should be able to go through this. We tested it today. But not the prettiest thing in the world, but functional. So what you're going to do is basically, we're not going to be able to make it through even 2 of the exercises in here. But I think a good starting point would be giving folks like 5 or 6 minutes and letting folks still work through if you want to have the whole 10, but then coming back and asking questions around presentation or any of the exercises within here. This is just a breakdown and the journey that you go through based upon the slides and the process I just went through. So essentially what you would do is start off with just giving like a brief 2-sentence description of your idea, the problems it solves, and how those tie to company goals. Then from there, documenting those personas. Just starting with like who's going to approve the idea, easiest part, and then just work your way down here. The hardest thing that folks are going to run into is probably the value. So like I said, we can share a follow-up exercise for that separately if there is interest. So with that, let's do the breakout, and if everybody clicks the link once again, let me know if you can't get to it. It's going to look like this once you click on the link. It's going to ask you to create a copy. Just click make a copy. And then I think everybody has an idea, like an internal idea already here. If you don't, you can take one of the ideas that you came up with during Ash's exercise and take that through just as practice. Once again, this is something you can use from an intrapreneur perspective. A lot of this, about 90% of it, can be taken to the entrepreneur perspective as well. Mm-hmm. So with that, we'll do a quick breakout, set like a quick 5 minutes. And if there's questions, feel free to come on, like on voice or in chat. I'll be watching that. And yeah, thanks everybody. I did not cue elevator music, unfortunately, but I can pull some up. Anna, any questions or things you'd like to add?
Could you give maybe just an extra example of a customer persona? I feel like that might be new for some.
Yes. So in terms of, let's go back up here, just because folks are not going to be able to work through the entire doc. Let's go to our simple example here. And this is meant to be oversimplified, folks, by the way. But just your secondary customers are the folks that once your idea is implemented, they'll be using it, right? Primary customers are going to be the ones buying it. Influencers are the ones, like I said, from a pragmatic perspective, are the ones that can delay the idea, even if it made sense to leadership, because it's against their own self-interest. Seen enough of these at this point in terms of watching this happen across customers, companies over the years. But another example related to Ideawake, I mean, secondary users would be all the frontline staff and team members who would be submitting ideas on our platform, right? And or going through this program as a cohort. Primary customers would be normally like a director of innovation, right, within an organization who is actually getting the budget approved and making the decision on like a platform to move forward with. Influencers would be often actually like a director of operations who might also use the platform for a different use case within the organization.
Love it. Thank you.
Of course. Like I said, folks, I'm watching the chat if any questions come up. Got about 2 minutes left, folks. Oh, and I'm reading the above comments now. Thanks, folks. Yes, Erin, part of this was, yeah, inspired by Sargento. Alrighty, folks, down to about a minute, and then we can pause and take the last part of our time together here for share outs for anybody who wants to share, and then biggest questions and or obstacles that you might be encountering in getting something happening inside your company for an idea you have. Alrighty, this is always the most dangerous part of these. But do we have anybody that wants to at least, like I said, point of this was to give an intro for folks, and then if you haven't been able to even get to the customer persona side of things, no worries at all. Would love to just take the time. If anybody wants to ask questions or just share an idea that they have currently that they're trying to get implemented inside the organization and or obstacles that you're encountering. Take the remainder of time for that. If you want to just come on, does everybody have the ability to go on voice?
Yep.
Yeah. All right. If anybody wants to take the leap of faith. If not, I'll just smile here for the next minute or two, or have Anna step in. Oh, we gotta have somebody. Dennis, it looks like you raised your hand for a second. Oh, I think he's talking to somebody else though.
Yeah, if nobody else is willing, I'll share a thought.
It just takes one to start, Dennis.
Sure. What should I do? Should I share my screen?
If you want to, go right ahead. Or if you're having trouble there, Dennis, if you don't have the permission, if you do, oh, no, he does.
Okay.
Oh,
All right.
man, you made it pretty decent amount of the way.
All right. So, well, it's been something I'm working on. So it's non-digital impacts on food products. So, coming up with ideas, to help us sell more food products, but not digital. So not another email saying, "Hey, come and buy this." Not another, even social media post saying, "Hey, this is really cool. Come and try this thing." So the problem is just staying closer to what's trend or the leading brand. So the main person might be like the CMO. They want to grow sales. They want to grow also the customer centricity of his merchants. The merchants want to grow sales. They want to satisfy the customer. Demand planner, they want to have less clearance. They want to have a faster inventory cycle. So the idea is, trying to get more of the early signals of when a product might be going look like that people are no longer interested in a certain food product or flavor or something like that, so that we can reduce the clearance of discontinued items or items that no customer wants to buy anymore. So it's really just pulling ahead sales to stay closer to the adoption and try and get ahead of it so that we don't have a very low a very gradual slope of retirement of a food product, but to make it quicker so that we don't have to eat as much of the margin.
For sure. And then in terms of the so I think we're down to like a minute here, but just the immediate thing for that, one would be like there's internal data
Yep.
on what how long it takes and how much money is lost on that discontinuation. That's like the immediate place to go. Find the SME that has that internal data. You get a cost of the problem. And by implementing your solution, you can reduce the cost of the problem by X. And then from there, the pitch would be trying a really limited campaign and I'm not sure how big the market is that you're in, right? Or the company or how many customers you're serving, but trying a series of 500 really random example, like 500 flyers in a limited market segment in order to see whether or not you can get directional data on it, would be the ask. Does that make sense, Dennis?
Yep.
Awesome. Hope this is helpful.
Yes. Thank you.
Of course. All right.
Who else has questions about this document? We still have Ash and Justin and Erin on the line. So if you have any questions about the process of ideating or building a business case, we've still got these experts for a few minutes. I have a question. Someone's thinking of one, and it struck me at the very start of your document, Coby, but highlight the problems that your idea solves. I feel like, we sometimes have our blinders on too close and we aren't able to see the problem. Do you have advice for individuals so that they're really getting the full scope of the issue?
Yeah, that's going out and talking to customers.
Yeah.
It's literally just talking internally about folks that you think experience that problem or internally, externally that experience the problem and asking whether it's a problem and then building up from there. Also going, like I said, for Dennis's example, there's normally internal data that's going to exist because you come up with the ideas on something to improve based upon normally your work experience or work experience of a friend. And that ties to probably some type of metric or report that's measured inside of the company.
What other questions?
I wouldn't mind hearing if, I know Coby also did it, and what Justin has about any way of slotting this into a larger product backlog. I think I saw he comes from a product background, would be, how does he balance that?
Justin, you want to take that one?
Or anybody, but just
Ash,
thing.
you have thoughts on that one?
Yeah, so Justin's here. He just came off a mute. I don't want to like talk over him, but it is interesting. So as an innovation team, we work with all of these different towers, as we call them, different product leads that have their own backlog. And so sometimes we work with them within their backlog, but sometimes what happens is an entirely part of the business will come with an idea that is really disruptive to that backlog. It's been a really delicate balance between trying to work within what we currently have and how do we change some of that. So I think having some of our things like Innovate for Impact, which is our 6-week innovation challenge, and bringing some of those innovation skills have kind of helped us to work through some of those ideas. But I think it's a journey we're still on as well. But where we're going, or at least where hopefully we'll be going, is having like protected time and space and funding for innovation. Because right now we're still on that product journey, and for our people, our product owners who are more mature in that process, it's much easier to innovate with them. We have some areas that are still very traditional, and in those cases, they are 100% allocated with funding and time and money. And so in those instances, we've had to really kind of like chip away where we can. And I think you just kind of have top-down buy-in that innovation is not just a tool or a luxury, that incubation of ideas and being an entrepreneur is a key success for your company. And if you don't have that top down buy-in, it's kind of hard to disrupt a roadmap, even if you already come in and say, yes, but this is a higher ROI, this is a higher, well, whatever. So I do think there's just kind of like a relationship building that has to happen as well.
Often there's not ROI on the items that you're comparing against, which makes it more difficult.
Yeah, I can add there. Sorry, I'm having some low bandwidth here. Hopefully you can hear me just fine, but I got my camera off here. But yeah, that's a great question, and I'd like to add to it a bit. It's there's a fine balance when it comes to us being the folks when it comes to like trying to inspire and drive others to be innovation, empower them, and also like keeping the steam and the momentum going when it comes to people that are really excited and want to share an idea, because people get excited about something, and what it really comes down to is yeah, there's the ROI piece, but how you foster and nurture it too. So right, make them a part of the cycle of it's their idea, helping them mature it, and then making the connections and helping them see, okay, be along on the process of like, is this something that is we're ready to do now, or maybe the timing is a little bit off, because we've been in situations where an idea didn't actually take off until a year or two later, and it really comes down to the timing and where the company is in their tech journey. And because if it's something that is very heavy based on a supply chain product or supply chain solution, let's say for a brewery, that brewery may not have the infrastructure to help to support that solution, but let's say in year two, that it can it can stand up and it can thrive in that ecosystem. So it also comes down to timing and for an organization's tech journey. So great question.
Thanks for that detail, guys. Any last questions from the group?
It does look like Carol had one in the chat about examples for service-oriented businesses. I know we kind of fell into those product spaces, and I think, and Coby's probably got some great examples on this as well, but not just extranet or entrepreneur, but also intrapreneur. from a service standpoint, right? As a IT organization, we are definitely a service organization. Getting really passionate about your customer, your stakeholder. Where are their pain points? Learning about those. Where can you improve on the process or in the engagement and experience that they have with you as a service organization? Those have been some of the areas that we've worked on. How do you improve the quality, the speed of delivery of those services? Those have been some areas that we've looked at for innovation in as an entrepreneur.
And just to add on to Erin's point too, what is nice about service organization, like as a whole company being a service organization versus like a physical product that you're building out, a lot of the time the cost of trying something out or like doing a test is much lower. It's a much lower barrier to entry to change like a process, which a lot of service organizations are like, your core value proposition is going to tie to like a core process, like billable hours, right? So trying out like a pilot on a new billable hours like software, at this random example, it's a much lower cost of entry and you can turn it on or off really quick. It's just still like the same tenets that I think what everybody taught, well, from at least what I was highlighting, still apply. It's just making sure that the ask isn't a full rollout of whatever you're presenting. It's like make it as small as possible in order to validate whether like level 2 assumptions. Hope that's helpful.
I think one of the great examples of that one, Coby, is I'm not going to remember if it was DoorDash or who it was, right? But you can build the front end, but you can do the gerbil behind the scenes, right? You can manually call the orders into the restaurant and still prove your idea. So it's getting really creative on what is the true thing you're trying to test, and then go from that experiment and keep iterating through.
Proverbial, it's a Wizard of Oz MVP for anybody that wants to look that up. It's called the Wizard of Oz MVP.
I will. Okay, friends, we are at time. We have 2 more in the series. If you want to join for all 3 or join what you're able to, in November, we're tackling AI. In December, we're talking storytelling, 2 really huge skills you're going to need to help move these ideas forward inside organizations. I want to really thank each of the presenters who took time out of their evening to join us, to be prepared for this, to share such valuable content. Just so appreciate you. And I hope everybody got a lot out of this and is going to link in and follow on with all of these great speakers in our journey. So thanks, everybody. Hope you all have a good night.